Hello, welcome back to Football is Life. Got a great episode coming up tonight. Looking at England's game against Uruguay on Friday night. Looking at a couple of other things. Obviously, massive news with Igor Tudor leaving Spurs just a day ago. And, it looks like it's going to be his replacement in De Zerbi. And obviously, England v Japan. And Arsenal withdrawals from the international camp. So loads of things to talk about and crack straight on with. The England game on Friday night is a great place to start. Just make sure you like, comment and subscribe before cracking and follow Football is Live. Okay, so the England game on Friday night, overall, obviously quite disappointing. We kind of expected a little bit more from England, but if you look at it, Uruguay, a good tried and tested team at international level, not easy, South American opposition, was never going to be easy, and they make it difficult. And actually looking back and reflecting on the game, it was England's B team really, and a few, barring a few players, a lot of players that, haven't been in the squad kind of consistently with a point to prove. Overall, not too many really captured their chance, I don't think. Obviously, Ben White, really interesting, sort of cameo for him coming on. We don't like to see any player getting booed, but, England fans are, they're really passionate. They don't forget, if you've refused to play for your country or anything like that in the past, it's often held against players in this country, rightly or wrongly. So to get booed coming on the pitch, then to score what looked like the winner, just an incredible little cameo for him. And then giving away the penalty, to which Valverde slots away, to grab the draw for Uruguay. So, massive kind of, up and down for Ben White. And if that will die down and he carries on playing for England, who knows? I'm sure it will as he goes along. But, he must have been thinking, oh, my days, massive highs. Little bit of a low there as well, and all wrapped into like a few minutes was just crazy, and kind of summed up his little cameo. But yeah, hopefully for him it settles down. He's probably one of the players that would come out with a bit of credit and maybe give himself a chance to get on the plane. Looking at a couple other players that I think didn't do themselves any harm. I would say Marcus Rashford, obviously having a good year at Barcelona. Still got that rapid pace and direct play. And, he could be a really good option for England. I didn't think he did his chances any harm whatsoever. And James Garner as well of Everton in the midfield, I thought, he was impressive. Looks a good player. He's a real improving player, and he didn't do his chances any harm either. So, there was a couple real positives to come out of it, despite it being, a mediocre game for a long time and all the drama coming late on. But yeah, it was an opportunity taken by a couple, but maybe not enough. I mean, if you look at Dominic Solanke and Calvert-Lewin, did they really do enough? We are literally a country with one world-class striker really remaining and not a lot else coming through really at this stage. But if I was Ollie Watkins, I would still be harbouring some hope of getting in this England squad for the World Cup for sure. And another player, obviously, Man United, top-level player. He's had a good season. He's proven his worth over the years, is Harry Maguire. He didn't do himself any harm. And, he's got to be massively in the thoughts, for Thomas Tuchel for the World Cup. And obviously, we look ahead now. They play Japan tomorrow night. And, more of what we call, I suppose, the 18 players come back. Yes, there's a few missing through injury. But, we're expecting a real more solid kind of experienced England team tomorrow night, with a few maybe chucked in from Friday night to get another opportunity to make the plane. It's the last real international games now, isn't it, before the World Cup? So it's your last real chance. The next time is going to be, the squad's going to be announced. It'll be the warm-up games, in America. So, time's running out for these players. And for me, not enough players on the night did enough to really force himself on the plane and say, look, you've got to take me. So from that aspect, disappointing. But there is another chance on Tuesday night for a few, and a much more experienced England team, I think, and a Thomas Tuchel team to play on Tuesday night. So expecting a good win at home against Japan on Tuesday night and a better England performance for definite. And another one, these international breaks, they're always tricky, aren't they? They're always interesting. Players pulling out, players being called up, given an opportunity. So, that consistency does go up and down. But a really interesting one, I suppose, in this country and for the Premier League is 11 Arsenal players have now pulled out of international duty, this break. And are they injured? Some of these kind of concerns, and as what the injuries have been listed as is, checks or problems, is not fully fledged diagnosed injuries. So, is it a ploy from Arsenal Football Club? Have they asked the players to look? Can you pull out of international duty? The league's more important. You don't know. You can imagine that it's been said. It's controversial, and I know pundits out there have been saying it today, but I don't think it's fair to say, oh, Arsenal are doing this to cheat and win the league and provide any edge. I think they're that far ahead in the league. They could have all played international football and they still would have been okay. So I don't think it's that detrimental to any other team or the league. It is what it is. Arsenal have got that luxury. Whether it's happened rightly or wrongly, it's happened. But with or without it, I think they would still be favourites for the league. So, yes, it probably helps. All these players not playing international games, fresh to go again for the rest of the season. But it's a controversial one. It can't just be that, one or two you could believe, but 11 pulling out of international duty is quite incredible. So, definitely looks like a pattern there, which is interesting. But I'm sure Arsenal fans are delighted. They probably realise the players aren't injured. They're absolutely fine, and they're going to be fine for the international call up. So yeah, really, really interesting. But it helps Arsenal, doesn't it, in the long run? It definitely makes them more likely to take this title home, even if it wasn't wrapped up already. And obviously massive news, and rightly so, the title for the episode tonight is De Zerbi. I'm a big fan. Anybody knows that watches the channel, I'm a massive fan of De Zerbi. It could be a masterstroke by Tottenham if they can get this man in. I mean, their games, their running, it looks really tricky. Igor Tudor has left the building, and you're kind of thinking, like, who is going to come in and save Tottenham? You would say, apart from Abi Alonso, and that's not going to happen because we think he's going Liverpool, don't we? But he would be, the best one out there, knows the Premier League, great style of football. I mean, he's not going to be able to implement that style in a relegation dogfight. He might be able to, but that's not going to be the main aim for this season. But if they can get De Zerbi in, if it were me, if I was on the Tottenham board, I would be all out for De Zerbi, giving him the money he wants. Even if we went down, just say, look, get us back up. We'll still be a massive club in the Championship if the dreaded happens. But De Zerbi to Tottenham, let us know your thoughts. Comment, let us know. De Zerbi for Tottenham, is that a good appointment? For me, as a purist, a football purist, I think it's an absolutely wonderful appointment if it gets over the line. And it definitely gives Tottenham more of a chance to stay up, because before De Zerbi coming in, if Tudor had stayed with those fixtures, I've been saying it for weeks, I think they're down. If he came in, it would make you, adjust your thought process, definitely, and give Tottenham some hope, even in that tough run of fixtures. He is the man that definitely could get those players playing, exciting, attacking football, maybe just even outscoring teams. Defensively, they're not going to be as, the strongest even still, but outscoring teams to stay in the Premier League. And that is what is crucial to Tottenham. That's the biggest thing that matters. So, yeah, massive kind of news. I bet Tottenham fans are licking their lips saying, yes, why did this not happen earlier? But yes, can they get their man? Let us know. But I would love him at Spurs, love him back in English football. I think he's a cracking manager. And yeah, bring him back. And what an appointment that would be for the Tottenham. England v Japan, I suppose I didn't give a prediction. We need to kind of predict that with players back. And I think top players playing, Harry Kane at Wembley. I can only see, with Rodgers back in, exciting football. Other players with still points to prove. I think it's going to be a big performance from England, And I say that every time England play, I feel, and sometimes it just doesn't happen with international football. It can be a drab affair, but I really think they're going to really go and put a show on Tuesday night. And Japan are no mugs, they're a decent football team, but I'm going England 3, Japan 1, and I think England definitely getting the job done and given the country a bit more enthusiasm going into the World Cup, I believe. We've got a good squad, a great squad, strength in depth, so many players that would get into other international nations that we're kind of trying to, peg in those little places, I suppose, we've got the likes of Foden, Palmer, who are not guaranteed. Although, I think Palmer's just massive. He should be in that first 11 for England without a doubt. But, we've got an abundance of good fullbacks. We've got good goalkeepers, great midfield options, centre midfield options. The only thing we're lacking and we really need is to unearth a real backup for when Kane calls it a day. Because, when Kane leaves, I think it's going to be one of those things where we're kind of not going to know what's gone until he's gone and how good he was. But, he's top draw. He's if not the best number 9 in the world, I can't think of another at this moment in time. So, yeah, I mean, the England squad looks set. We should have a good summer. But Tuesday night is to lay a marker down now and put on a performance for the home crowd, I think, and give everyone a bit of optimism going in towards the end of the season and the summer. On this channel, we're going to be building up, World Cup episodes is going to be exciting stuff. So can't wait for that. Loads more to come. I'll be back on as well, just so the last one tonight, back on later in the week to kind of preview the weekend's football. We've got, not the return of the Premier League, but return of English football, Championship, League One, League Two, the conference is all back. Easter programme, Good Friday, Saturday, Easter Monday, great time of year. And the FA Cup returns this weekend, really at the business end now. We've got the FA Cup to look forward to on the weekend and preview a few of those games. So make sure you look and try and check out the channel later on in the week because another episode will be going up. And then obviously in future weeks, we're looking ahead now. Champions League is going to be back soon. The last 8 teams remaining. We're going to look and see who we think can win that. For me, I'd be looking at... I know Madrid are good, and I know they used to win this competition, but I don't see them winning it this year. I think someone else will get the better of them. And for me, I think it's between PSG and Arsenal. So, that's going to come up in future episodes as well in the next couple of weeks. So, loads to look forward to. All right, if you go into a game this week or you go into the England match tomorrow, enjoy, get behind the boys, all right? Football is life, the British podcast. And yeah, I'll look forward to coming back later on in the week. All right, stay safe out there. Be good, everyone. Cheers.